Have you ever felt that moment when life suddenly does not look the same anymore? When the things you once loved or depended on no longer feel right? When the world around you still looks the same on the outside, but something deep inside has shifted in a way you cannot ignore? It is like walking into your childhood home after many years and realizing that while the walls, the colors, and the furniture are the same, something feels smaller, as if you have grown beyond it. This is what the beginning of a spiritual awakening feels like. It is not just a change of habit or a small adjustment in lifestyle. It is the birth of a new way of seeing and living life. And once this process begins, you can never go back to who you used to be. It is both beautiful and frightening because everything familiar begins to dissolve. The patterns, the routines, the relationships, even your own identity start to feel different. The masks you once wore to please others become heavy. The rules you once followed without question now feel meaningless. And in the silence of your own heart, you hear a whisper telling you that there is more, that there is a truer version of you waiting to be born. At first, this shift feels uncomfortable because you are stepping out of the known and into the unknown. You may feel alone, misunderstood, even judged by those who still live in the world you are leaving behind. But at the same time, there is a growing sense of freedom. You begin to see through the illusions that once controlled you, and you discover that you are much more than the role society gave you. You feel a pull towards something deeper, something more authentic, and though fear rises up, the call of your soul becomes stronger than the fear. This is the beginning of transformation, and with it comes the slow release of things that once held you captive. One of the first things you begin to let go of is the endless need for approval. From childhood, we are trained to seek validation from parents, teachers, friends, and later from the world of social media where likes, comments, and followers measure our worth. It feels good in the moment, but deep down it keeps us enslaved. When you awaken spiritually, you begin to see how shallow and empty this chase really is. You realize that no matter how much approval you collect, it never lasts. You always want more. Slowly, you turn inward and discover that the only true validation is the one you give yourself. You no longer need to be liked by everyone. You no longer measure your worth by the number of compliments you receive, because you now understand that you are always enough. This shift frees you in ways you never imagined. It is like breaking out of a cage you never realized you were in. As your awareness grows, you also start letting go of your attachment to material things. The world teaches us that happiness lies in accumulation, in more money, bigger houses, better cars, and endless possessions. But when your soul begins to awaken, you start to see that these things are temporary, fleeting, and ultimately empty. You realize that you cannot take any of it with you when you leave this world. You start to notice that the people with the most do not always seem the happiest, and the ones with the least often carry the deepest joy. You begin to simplify your life, to clear out the clutter, to let go of things that no longer serve you. You learn to find joy not in what you own, but in how you live, in the love you share, in the peace you cultivate inside. It is not that you reject all material things, but you no longer let them define who you are. You stop being a prisoner to the endless cycle of wanting and buying. You discover that true richness lies in experiences, in connection, and in being fully alive in the present moment. Another thing that begins to dissolve is the illusion of control. Most of us grow up believing that if we plan enough, if we work hard enough, if we control every detail of our lives, we can guarantee happiness and success. But the truth is, control is an illusion. The more you try to force life into your shape, the more resistance you create and the more exhausted you become. During awakening, you start to see that life has its own flow, and that resisting this flow only brings suffering. You learn to surrender, not in defeat, but in trust. You realize that there is a larger plan, a divine timing guiding you even when you cannot see it. This does not mean you stop acting or stop caring. You still set intentions and take steps, but you release the desperate attachment to outcomes. You stop trying to bend the river and instead learn to flow with it. In this surrender, you discover peace, even in uncertainty, because you know that whatever happens is for your growth and your highest good. As you walk further on this path, you also begin to examine the relationships in your life. You notice that some people uplift you, while others drain your energy. You begin to feel the weight of toxic relationships that once felt normal. These could be friendships, family ties, or even romantic bonds that keep you stuck in cycles of negativity, fear, or obligation. At first, it is painful to admit that people you love may no longer belong in your journey. But as your awareness grows, you understand that holding on to them is keeping you from moving forward. Slowly, you distance yourself from those who dim your light. And though it hurts, it creates space for new connections that match your true self. You attract souls who support your growth, who encourage your authenticity, who love you not for who you pretend to be, but for who you truly are. This change can feel like shedding skin. It leaves you raw at first, but what grows back is stronger, truer, and aligned with your spirit. Another powerful change is the refusal to compromise your authenticity. Before awakening, you may have spent years playing roles, hiding your true feelings, pretending to be what others wanted you to be. You wore masks to fit in, to avoid judgment, to keep the peace. But each mask stole a piece of your soul. Awakening tears off these masks one by one until you cannot bear to wear them anymore. You stop laughing at jokes you don't find funny. You stop saying yes when your heart wants to say no. You stop hiding your light to make others comfortable. Instead, you embrace your true self with all your flaws, quirks, and uniqueness. You stop apologizing for being who you are. This authenticity brings freedom beyond words. You begin to attract people and opportunities that match your truth, and you finally feel at home in your own skin. And then, perhaps the deepest shift of all, you begin to lose your fear of death. For most of our lives, death is the shadow we avoid, the topic we silence, the fear that lingers in the back of our minds. But when your soul awakens, you begin to see death differently. You realize that you're not just a body, but an eternal spirit. You see death not as an end, but as a transition, like a caterpillar dissolving in its cocoon before becoming a butterfly. The body may pass, but the essence of who you are cannot die. This understanding does not make you reckless, but it does make you free. You stop living in fear of endings and start living fully in the present. You savor life more deeply because you understand its impermanence. You love more fiercely. You laugh more freely. You breathe more consciously because you know every moment is a gift. In making peace with death, you discover how to truly live. As you awaken, you slowly let go of all these things: the need for validation, the weight of possessions, the illusion of control, the burden of toxic relationships, the masks of false identity, and the fear of death. Each release feels like a small death, but each death gives birth to a new freedom. You begin to walk lighter, to breathe easier, to live more authentically. You start to feel connected not just to yourself, but to the universe, to life itself. And though the journey is not always easy, though it asks you to let go of much that once felt safe, what you gain in return is priceless. You gain yourself. You gain truth. You gain a life that feels deeply aligned with your soul. So the question is, what are you ready to let go of today? What chains are you willing to release so that your spirit can finally breathe? Remember, this journey is not about becoming someone new. It is about remembering who you always were. You are not walking alone. For every soul that awakens lights the path for another. And as you continue forward, know that each step, each tear, each moment of surrender is guiding you home to the truest, most radiant version of yourself.